Welcome to another episode of the Art of Giving a Damn podcast. Today I have a guest with us who I think you're going to be fascinated by the journey he's taken in life and what he's decided to do as an entrepreneur and to share. So I want to welcome Paul Dixon to the show today. Paul, how are you?
I'm doing great today. Thanks for having me on the show.
Awesome. I'm excited to have you on and share. So tell me a little bit to start with about what you're doing right now.
Yeah, actually what I'm doing right now, my cousin and I have published a series book titled The Adventures of Papa Lemon's Little Wanderers. And in real life, Papa Lemon is our grandfather, and his magical train sends 5 friends back in time. So each book that we've created, which is 7 at this time, is a different lesson in history. So that's what I am working on right now.
That is such a cool idea. And I love that it's inspired by your personal family story.
Yeah, that's a really cool thing about it all. And actually, I really didn't know Papa Lemon that well. He passed away when I was about 8 years old. However, my cousin, who's a couple years older, had a much stronger relationship with Papa Lemon. So he was just inspired to write books featuring him as the main character.
Well, it's such a fun way to approach history because I remember when I was younger and most of the people I talked to, history was not the most exciting subject for a lot of us. And I think it's because so often it's not tied to those personal stories and got that fun twist to it that you guys are bringing into it.
Yeah, we think that's true too. Also, with the magical train, it can kind of stimulate the child's imagination to go back in time and learn about any type of lessons that they want to. But one of the things we also encourage is for children, if they can, to sit down with their grandparents, talk about their own family history, and get a better sense of who they are.
I love that. That's something that I think we don't encourage enough of today. It's so easy with just all of the hamster wheel that we seem to be trapped on so often to not have those strong family bonds. So that's great that you guys are doing something that really encourages that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things where my cousin Lehman Riley, the author of the books, has gone to numerous schools in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area and has talked to a lot of students, encouraged them to actually, again, talk to their grandparents and come back and share the stories. And some of the stories have just been fascinating about what they've been able to learn.
I would imagine because it's easy sometimes to so quickly forget what history's taught us because we don't hear those personal stories from our family. I know when I hear parents and grandparents talk about what the country was like 20, 40, 60 years ago, it's so different. And it's easy to forget how far we've come as well as what we still need to work on.
Yeah, there's no ifs, ands, and buts about that, especially when you look at technology. I mean, it's like a totally different world that we live in now compared to the world I was living in when I grew up in the 60s and 70s. Sometimes I joke like, hey, you know what? We only had 4 TV stations. And this thing happened at like midnight or 1 o'clock. TV went away.
That's hard to imagine for those of us who were born a little later. I know I was born in the 80s, so technology's pretty much been around. The internet was around when I was little, but it is interesting the moments. I remember the first time my daughter was in a hotel and I'd left her in the room for a second. She's 12, and I called up to the room. When I came back to the room, she was so proud of herself because she figured out how to answer that big block thing that was ringing.
Oh,
she didn't even associate it as really being a phone. She didn't know it worked just because, cell phones and technology has grown so much. So I know you started out in a totally different career path. Where did you start and what was the journey that brought you into children's books?
Yeah, actually, I started my career in 1986 working for Target stores in their headquarters in downtown Minneapolis. So I worked there for 16 years. The last 8 years, I was a toy buyer. And that was a fascinating job because you were able to see all the new toys and the trends, et cetera. So it really was a great start to my career. However, at the end of 2002, I left Target and I did some consulting, for a little bit of time. And actually, that's when the magic really started happening with my shift in career because I was actually in a Target store and I ran into a cousin of mine. We started talking for a while. I gave her my business card. So she in turn gave my business card to my cousin Lehman. Lehman in August of 2003 called me up one day and said, hey, Paul, I have this concept, children's book concept I want to show you, featuring our grandfather, Papa Lemon. Basically, I met with him in August, and 1 year later, we decided to go into business and publish the books. So it's like I really fell into it versus me seeking this new adventure.
Very cool. It sounds like Target is a place where magic happens for you.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. And it's one of those things that I guess if you've been a buyer at Target for a while,
Mm-hmm.
you always go in the stores and see what's going on. I mean, I haven't bought, in 15 years, but I still walk the toy aisles just to kind of see what's going on or what's selling or other
Mm-hmm.
parts of the store just to see, some of the new things that are there.
That's awesome. So it's interesting that you say you kind of fell into it because I hear that a lot from entrepreneurs. It's, well, I didn't actually intend to set out starting this type of business, and somehow this is where I ended up. And I think that's so cool because sometimes the journey life takes us on really puts us into something that then we love. But it's not something that we would have 20 or 40 years ago thought, I'm going to be doing this in a few years.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I really feel that with the Papa Lemon book business, it's
Mm-hmm.
part of my divine assignment in life. The other part that's really interesting when I look back on it, since 1994, I either been buying or selling toys and children's books because actually I did take on another job a few years after I started the Papa Lemon book business with my
Mm-hmm.
cousin. In 2008, I started working for Disney Consumer Products, selling toys to Target. And I did that for 8 years. And I left that job a year ago because it felt like the right time for my cousin and I to really focus on making the Papa Lemon book business a success.
That's awesome. So, what is your favorite thing about being an entrepreneur, doing your own thing, and getting this book series out there?
The favorite thing about it is you have control to do really what you want versus someone else telling you what to do. I enjoy that aspect of it. But the part that is really fulfilling is when you actually see a child's face or you get a positive comment with respect to them reading the books and like thanking you for creating it. And actually, one really interesting story that happened quite a few years ago. I was at an event selling the books. Lehman wasn't with me at the time. And a gentleman in his 30s walked by the booth, stopped and looked at me and he goes, you know what? I read that Papa Lemon book. And what he said was, when I read it, I was going through a bad time in my life. I was actually in jail. And he said it was a great read and it put him in a different frame of mind. Now, I have no idea how that book ended up, in the jail he was at, but it actually did touch this middle-aged gentleman's life. So when you hear stories about like that, it just really encourages you to keep pushing forward.
Absolutely. I remember, I think it's from the movie You've Got Mail. There's a quote in there where one of the characters says, the books you read as a child become part of who you are in a way that nothing else does. And it really is so true. The books that we read shape so much how we see the world and really who we become.
Yeah, there is no ifs, ands, and buts about that. As you've mentioned that, one thing that popped in my head, I used to love the book Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I
That's
still
an
like
awesome
watching it.
one.
And it's one of those things where, I read that, as a child. And I always loved sweets, still do. So maybe that was an impact on why I have such a sweet tooth.
Could very well be. There is something that is just magical about the people who are able to tell those stories and really have a gift for expressing history and different experiences in a way that the rest of us make that connection with different things. So I think it's such an important piece for society, especially today, to have books in a time where so many things are so disconnected and virtual.
Yeah, I really agree. And especially like with the Papa Lemon series, one thing that I found is that there are hardly any, well, matter of fact, I haven't found any at all, series books that feature a grandparent as the main character.
Yeah,
And it,
when we talked about these, that was one of the things that caught my attention was this is really a unique approach to a children's book series.
yeah, definitely. So that whole intergenerational connection is something that just feel is really important, and youth and the grandparents can learn from each other by just talking about their family history and background.
Well, it's interesting because so many of us have such a connection with our grandparents, and we really do see them as that wise person who has the stories and can offer guidance. And it's crazy that there aren't more series like this out there because that is how we look at that generation of, this is someone who's been through so much, who has stories to share. And one thing that I really liked about your book series when I looked through it is you're addressing some different issues. I think your latest book. I think it's the latest one about Abraham Lincoln. Can you tell me a little bit about what inspired that one? Because you've got Abraham Lincoln talking about depression and working your way through that, which is something that kids really do need, equipped to deal with things like that. And I think sometimes society is failing them in equipping them to deal with those types of situations.
Yes, the seventh PapaLemon book is about Abraham Lincoln and his battle with depression. My cousin was inspired to write that book because there was some challenges with some family members, and he was thinking, maybe I should write a book about depression. And what actually ended up happening is that an organization, NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness, they actually read the book and they said, wow, this is really a unique way of handling the topic of depression in a way that is appropriate for a third grade child. And he also got a recommendation from a psychiatrist that works with children in the Twin Cities area. So it's one of those things where he got positive feedback, from people, but it really is a unique spin on Abraham Lincoln's life, because a lot of people don't know that he actually did battle with depression.
Yeah, there's so many things like that in history that the stories just, they're not told as often, and they really are valuable for us to learn from.
Yeah, definitely. So it's one of those things where, with the 7 books that have been written, it really does touch on a variety of topics, starting with Dr. Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman, then there's a book about the Navajo Wind Talkers in World War II. The 4th book is about a great woman athlete, Babe Dixon, who most people don't know who she is, but she excelled in sports in the 30s and 40s, won Olympic gold medals. She's one of the reasons why the LPGA became really popular. 5th book is about the California Gold Rush, and the 6th book is about the first successful open heart surgery performed by Dr. Daniel Hale Williams. So I can't take any credit for the creative aspect of illustrating or even writing the books, but Lehman has done an amazing job of picking out stories from a diverse perspective within history.
Yeah, you've combined so many interesting elements in it, from being, a grandparent, being the guide through it, the magic train, the role models in history that people can really be inspired by. I love that. So what you guys are doing is you sell them on your website, you're going into schools. What are the different ways you're getting them out there? And if listeners are interested, how can they help you spread the word about the book series?
Well, the best way to find out more about the book series is to go to the website, which is www.PaPaLemonedu.com. So all the information is on there. Books are also available on Amazon. So really, we just encourage people to, buy a book, and if they really enjoy it, spread it to social media, talk with their friends, write reviews on Amazon, anything to let other people know about what's going on. So it's really a grassroots effort, and also exposing, our PapaLemon concept on podcasts such as this are ways that we are trying to let more people know about PapaLemon and the importance of grandparents.
Awesome. So I will put the URL in the show notes for anybody who's listening. There should be a link somewhere near either the video you're watching, or if you're listening to audio, there will be a link below it somewhere close by that you can go to PapaLemonEdu.com and find out more about the book series. You may also want to talk to your children's teachers at school, or if you're homeschooling, consider using them as part of your curriculum, because books like this help children to see history in such a different way. It gives you that opening to have the conversations with them, to share your parents with your children, or to have your grandparents have those conversations with them about what they've learned through their lives and pass that wisdom on. Paul, thank you so much for coming on the show with us today. I appreciate talking with you and learning a little more about what you're up to.
Well, Michelle, thank you very much for having me on your show. It's been a great time talking to you about PapaLemon, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. And everybody listening, make sure you take a minute, stop by the website, check the books out. If you've got kids, this makes a great Christmas present. You're just at the right time of year for that, and a great gift anytime for your kids, for other kids in your life. Check them out, grab them on Amazon, leave a review, and help get the word out about this, because right now is a time when we all know the world needs positivity, the world needs this type of influence, so help us get the word out about that. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast and tune in for the next episode.